We have a friend who has cleaned her Studio 328, put it back together, and now the carriage is stuck on the bed and will not move. And here it is. When we get questions like this, we try to make a video to help the person suffering and also anybody else who might have a similar problem. For those who don't know, a studio is the same as a Singer, silver reed, or M-Pencil machine. At a certain point in the history of this type of machine, they were marketed under the studio badge. But if you have any of the same basic design of machine, this video may help you if you get into a similar situation.
All right, the dial, the selector dial right here, has a different position for different settings. In the stockinette position should be the easiest travel across the bed, even with no needles in working position. Now with this dial out, you notice this release button is what's supposed to free it when you get a jam. Now that is only effective when this dial is in place, because inside of this cover there are a set of arms, 2 on each side, and they ride cams that are associated with this dial position. So in this position, 2 on this side, 2 on this side are following their cams. The stockinette position means that all 4 of the cam positions are aligned so that this should move across the bed with no problem. Here's another thing to look at. Notice when I rotate, you have to cancel these fingers to begin with before you start across the bed, because they will try to read when there's nothing to be read. If there's not a card in, or if the readers are not in position to tell these what to do, then they stay blank like this one is.
Oops,
and even with threads in there, they still will read nothing as long as there's no information being passed to them. So when you start, make sure all of these fingers are pushed down right along here. This other side is really stiff, and that's another thing to look for. See how when I pushed, those popped up? Make sure they're all in the down position. That's what's important about getting this to cross the bed. This dial must be in place because of the readers on the outside that are following the cam directions, whether they're out or in, according to the cam they're riding, and the stockinette position gives all 4 of them a certain spot to be in to allow these needle paths underneath here to let the needles go through without impediment.
But we have a friend who has this dial off at the moment, and her carriage is jammed on the bed at the moment, although there don't seem to be any needles in work, so it's probably not jammed on needles. And she's having trouble, as I remember, getting past the card reader. What do you suggest for her? Because this release is not working as you said it wouldn't.
All right, notice with the dial in this position, that's all the way right in the knit in position.
Which is Fair Isle knitters. That was just what some early models called it, is knit in.
This post, this piece sticking out of the center post right here, lines up with the slot, which means it has to be in that position for this to lift off. So this is where you're going to have to start reinstalling it. Now the stitch length dial also has its own little track it rides in. You only need to have it so that it goes into this slot right here. That's all. It'll take care of itself when the stitch size dial is put on. But the important thing is this stop must line up with the slot in order to lower this down this post. But you're also going to need to make sure that these two readers on this side and two readers on this side. All they are is curved pieces, just like this tip. One on top of the other on this side, one on top of the other on this side. And that can be seen in her photograph that she sent us. But you have to make sure that those are floating enough that they can get into the right position when this dial is set down. Then we go back
And it
to...
may take a little wiggling if I'm
Yes.
understanding correctly.
Yes, it might. Which if this is up, that helps you do that if that won't come up. Hers has a little different than this studio. Hers has a center section here that comes off. And it may be that that center section comes off when this dial comes up, because the dial quite often sticks underneath this cover in some instances. But she needs to get those all set in the A-knit position, then moved back to stockinette.
Well, that does look like the letter A, but it's a symbol. It's not really a letter A.
But back to the stockinette position. And
at that point, it may move off of its jam.
Right. It's very likely. Make sure that the towers are freely rotating, because, see, this one being stiff means it's going to be slower to respond to walking across the bed than this one that's very smooth. So spraying a little bit of silicone in this tower, whichever one is the slowest, they have to match speeds going across.
That itself could cause a jam.
If the slow one can't keep up, then it's going to jam because they're not synchronized as they move across the bed. So check that. They should be like this one. If they're like this one, or one of them is, spray a lot of silicone freely down in there.
And I'm guessing she may not have clear access with her fingers to roll them. In that case, it wouldn't be a problem to just spray in silicone and hope that it... So I think you're saying if you're unable to rotate these for whatever reason, you can't get to them or they're stiff, go ahead and lubricate, because it couldn't do any harm. It could only help.
That's right. That's right. They need to turn freely enough to keep up with one another as you're going.
My own experience is that it may take a little while for the lubricant to work in. So you could get a response an hour later that you're not getting upon first squirt.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And if you have thread trapped in there like we saw on this particular carriage, those threads have to be soaked in the silicone in order for them to...
Right. Then once it's off the bed, you can manually remove them one at a time.
Right.
But you have to be able to spin the drums, see them, find them with a probe, and pull them out.
Yes. But that could be what's locking it up. All right, bear in mind that in this position, we never know who's gone in and done what with any of these carriages. It's a possibility it was misassembled when you got it. So when you disassembled, you have to be sure you get it right when you put it back. Trust me, I've done it wrong all the ways you can do it wrong. So that's what you're looking for. It may not have been correct when you got it. You just never know who went in and did what. So this is where you must be really careful.